Hey everyone, today we're going to learn a little bit about my expectations for this mastery check as you're drawing a vector landscape. We have been learning a lot of the tools in Illustrator these last couple of weeks. The tools that you're mostly going to use for this project are probably going to be your pen tool, your shape tool, and then the shape builder tool. As you're building your landscape, probably that pen tool is going to be your best friend, but if you find it intimidating, even though I encourage you to use it, the shape tool could also be used. And if you're creating things like trees or clouds, the shape builder tool is going to be an excellent resource for you. The gradient, fill, and stroke colors, we're going to help you to colorize your image, and then these are just refining tools. Keeping in mind that the main objective is to create depth. So you're going to be creating lighter colors the farther into the background that your artwork goes, and the closer to the foreground, you are going to have darker colors. This just creates that same perspective that we see in real life. Mountains very far away look light in color, but mountains very close look dark in color. All right, do not worry about overdrawing this or making it super complex. I am completely fine if your designs are very simple. In this slideshow presentation, which is inside of the Mastery Check assignment, you can see some examples of very simple artwork like this that is just using solid fill colors that are getting lighter as they go off into the distance and darker as they come up to the foreground, and just basic shapes, straight lines with the pen tool. They've created each one of these two cacti once, and then they've used the Alt drag to create copies of it, and then they've resized them as they get farther back into the distance. You can do that too. It doesn't have to be super fancy. This one's very simple too. This is literally just using the polygon tool to create some triangles, using the shape builder tool to color in the different colors to create depth and a more three-dimensional look. Right here we've got shadows and we're layering them so that they look like there are some in the front, some in the back. This is just really simple stuff. This one's even simpler. It's literally just using the pen tool or the brush tool to draw shapes. Remember, you have to completely close the shape out so that you can have a fill color, but they've used gradients on this one to kind of create that look as if the sun is shining down and has a little bit of shadows in some places. Like I said, it can be simple, or you can work all of the way up to some of these more medium and complex designs. This one's a medium because it has a lot going on here, but if you really inspect this, it's literally just circles and lines. That's it. But they've made it a little bit more complex by layering them and adding all of the different details and the different sizes of trees and things like that. So as you work through this, you can read my notes for each one of those to see what they did to create the depth and create the detail. Some of them are really complex. Some of them are super simple. Stuff like this that you're like, oh my gosh, Mrs. Haley, like really? Seriously? But this is just the pen tool. Layers of shapes on top of each other. The pen tool. Is the little house and stuff more complicated? Sure. But this is just the pen tool. That is all this is. So once you've gotten over your fear of the pen tool and you've drawn something, or decided what you're going to draw, you need to come over into Illustrator. Oops, you don't need that. And you're going to decide how you are going to do your work. So we have a new file because we're creating this from scratch. When you click new file in Adobe Illustrator, it brings up the new document dialog box. I want you guys to get used to setting your intent to print. The reason I want you to do that is because it's going to give you CMYK color mode, which is the best for our classroom printers if we want to print them off on our small one or on our poster printer. So right now the units of measure is points. If you wanted something more recognizable, you can drop this down and put it into inches, and you'll see that the default letter size is 8.5 by 11 inches. What I need you to remember to do is name this vector landscape. That way it doesn't fall into the ocean of untitled documents in your computer. You don't need to worry about bleed for this one. We're just going to print it off the same size that it is, and you're going to make your artwork go to the edge of the canvas. So, yeah, This is how you set it up. You hit create. I'm going to make mine landscape orientation, but if you have a design in mind that needs to be portrait, go right on ahead. You can always change it once you get in there. So I have my landscape. I am not going to go into a whole bunch of like crazy detail. I'm just going to really quickly show you how to do this. I want you to notice that when I'm drawing with the pen tool and I go all the way around, and I'm intentionally going off the canvas because I want to show you something. And I have a black stroke right now. It looks as if this is a complete shape because over here you can see how it's filling it in with color. But until I bring my cursor back to that first anchor point and see that circle, see how there's no circle, and I go up a little bit more and now the cursor has a circle next to it, that's how I know I'm closing the shape. And I have a complete shape now. I can come over here into my properties panel while I have that shape still selected, and I can choose a color. I'm gonna go with, I don't know, let's go with this color. All right, so I've got this, and just for kicks and giggles and to make this go faster so that you don't have a 15-minute long video to watch, I'm just going to select this. Yeah. And I'm gonna hold down the Alt key to click and drag and make a oh, I let go too soon. Control Z. Hold Alt, click, drag, let go with the click, and let go with the Alt. I'm gonna flip this over. I'm gonna come down here. I'm gonna change it to a little bit darker because I'm getting closer to the foreground, so I need to make my foreground colors darker. I can squish and squash this, move it around a little bit. I'm going to do the same thing. Hold Alt, click, drag, let go of Alt. I'm going to flip it again, and I'm going to move it again and stretch it out just a hair. Okay, so now I'm going to come change my fill color, make it a little darker. All right, several things are happening here. Let me back out so you can see everything that's happening. All right. I have my shapes. I decided I don't want that stroke color, so I'm going to click to drag with my selection tool to get all three things. I'm going to come over here to the stroke color and turn it off because I think it's ugly. But I could also add gradients with my gradient tool. This is not complete. This does not meet the requirements of the rubric, but just for demonstration purposes, I wanted to show you something. If I forgot to add a background color, let me open up my layers panel so you can see what's happening. I click this little caret and I see I've got this path right there selected. I have this path and I can see that it's selected, and I have this path and I can see that it's selected. The reason that this one is underneath all of these is because it's underneath all of those over here. If I forgot to add a background color, I can come over here and let's say I want to make a nice blue sky. All right, I've got my rectangle tool. I'm going to come over here and draw my rectangle. The problem is I drew it last, so it's the last layer over here in my layers panel. It's on top of everything. All you have to do is click that layer and drag it down, and you'll put it behind everything. All right. Oh, cancel. My bad. Okay, so I'm going to get my selection tool. Let's say that I've read my rubric, I have followed all of the rules in the rubric, I am completely finished with my artwork, and I want to turn it in. All of this stuff that's on the outside of my canvas, maybe it had to be there because of the tools I was using or whatever, or maybe it was just easier to draw it and stretch it and let it go past the canvas. But you don't want to turn it in with all this extra stuff. It looks a little bit sloppy. So you're going to need to make something called a clipping mask. All a clipping mask is like a cookie cutter. So remember when you were rolling out cookie dough with mom or grandma, and you get the cookie cutter and you stamp it down into the dough. Everything that's on the outside of that cookie cutter gets cut away, and then you're just left with the shape of the cookie cutter. That's all a clipping mask really is. So I'm going to come over here and get the shape tool, and the shape that I want my cookie cutter to be is the shape of my canvas. Coming over here to my properties panel, just so I can show you this, it does not matter what color you use. I'm going to pick some just random, like let's go with this magenta. It won't matter because the shape that we're drawing over this, you can leave it blank and it will still work the same. The shape that we're drawing over this is just telling Adobe Illustrator what shape your cookie cutter is going to be. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to get to the corner of my design, and I'm going to draw this rectangle over my entire canvas like so, like that. And you can see that I've got this magenta rectangle on top of all of my other artwork. I'm going to come back and get my selection tool. I'm going to click to drag everything. This will let you see all of the outlines of your work that's underneath that rectangle, plus, your rectangle that you've drawn. Everything is selected. Once you are completely finished with your entire design and you're ready to turn it in and you want to trim off anything excess, you'll put your rectangle over your canvas, you'll get your selection tool and select everything. Then you will right click and say make a clipping mask. This turns that rectangle on top of all of your artwork, this one, it turns it into a cookie cutter, and everything that falls outside of the canvas, outside of the cookie cutter, gets cut away. So, boom. Also, the cookie cutter disappears. So when we look at this, that rectangle is now a clipping mask. See how it's not purple anymore? It's there, but all your artwork is still technically there and you could still edit it, but that's a later lesson. I just wanted you to see how to do that so that your artwork is nice and tidy when you're ready to turn it in. Remember, when you're finished, you need to export it as a PNG to submit it, but you also need to save it, File, Save As, an Adobe Illustrator file, so that if you needed to come back and edit for any reason, if you didn't pass the mastery check, you would still have all of your layers intact and could come back and refine your artwork and then resubmit it.